Your mic.
Hello everyone. So this is the first presentation I'm ever gonna do in my socks, so I hope that you don't mind. I'm very comfortable right now and I want to keep like that. So yes, we're gonna talk about this, so the intersection between Web3, conservation and NGOs. My name is Rodrigo Zapata. I have some experience, 2 startups, international technology law background, in crypto since 2018, and working for 2 years in sustainability as well. So let's start. So who are we? Okay, so I work for International Conservation Fund. We are an NGO based in the Netherlands, here in Amsterdam actually. We've been active since 2019, so we're pretty young. And our mission is to create public awareness and fundraising for critical, unknown, and underfunded projects in the world, especially conservation projects. Our main partner is Forgotten Power Foundations. They are based in Congo, DRC, and what they do is that they have a stewardship over a national park. National park is called Upemba. It's 13,000 kilometers square, and as you can imagine, it requires a lot of protection. We need over 200 rangers. We need to protect the animals. We have poaching happening there, illegal mining, etc., etc. If you want to know more about us, feel free to check the QR. You have our websites and the website of Forgotten Power Foundation as well. So let's start a little bit about NGOs, conservation, and its problems. So what we see right now is that we're kind of having a very complex problem. We're trying to solve a puzzle, and all the pieces that we have don't fit together. So how are we going to solve a puzzle in such a situation? Well, it's really hard, right? So NGOs. So NGOs, as you all know, are these centralized organizations that are trying to do social impact in the world. More specifically on conservation, we have WWF, we have the Rainforest Alliance, and we have many others. However, there are big problems with this structure. Why? Well, because they are centralized and they obviously offer centralized solutions in the most cases. But we are facing decentralized problems. What do I mean when I say we're facing decentralized problems? Well, in the problems that we have in Upemba National Park are not the same problems that we have in Kruger National Park, nor the same problems that we have in South America, nor the same problems that we have in European parks. So every conservation area in the world and every, just generally sustainability, every problem is very different, it's heterogeneous. So we cannot pretend to apply an homogeneous answer to solve these problems. And what has been the consequence of trying to do it this way? Well, we have lost 95% of all the biodiversity that we ever had in the history, which is insane, okay? And right now, this is just accelerating. Right now, from the biodiversity loss is 100 to 1,000 times what it will naturally be if humans were not here. So it's accelerating, and the problem is not being fixed by these structures, okay? So what we can do about this? Well, a potential solution are distributed ledger technologies, for example, blockchain or hash graph. So as you know, these technologies allows us to tackle things very locally, very decentralized, with a lot of transparency. Transparency is another big thing in the NGOs world, because we have scandal cases of money that was sent to a country for development, but also through NGOs, and end up in the hands of warlords and corrupt politicians. So how do we solve this? We need to go more local. We need to decentralize our efforts, and we need to personalize them to the problems that we're trying to fix. And so let's talk about some examples of how we can actually do this. So we have this concept of impact DAOs and protocols. So there's actually a book that you can check. It's the Impact DAO book by GitHub. And it's really interesting. So it's basically the idea of how to use decentralized autonomous organizations, these organizations that are Web3 native and basically operate in a decentralized fashion to fix these problems. For example, we have Moonjelly DAO. They're trying to fix the biodiversity problem in the oceans. We have Vita DAO. They're trying to fix the longevity of the human expectation. So they're trying to make us immortal, basically. We have the Toucan protocol. They are tokenizing CO2 credits in a very, very innovative way. We have KlimaDAO. They're similar to Toucan, but they're just trying to capture CO2 and just keep it there forever, so that they just buy the credits and they don't come back. So we see that there are a lot of opportunities in this regard. And to be honest, I think that NGOs eventually gonna be superseded by impact DAOs. Impact DAOs that are focused on one particular thing, so ocean or land or even more concrete. Now we have biodiversity of elephants, biodiversity of rhinos, biodiversity of gorillas. So this is one of the ways we're moving forward. Another way is regenerative finance. So regenerative finance is basically is a Web3 approach to finance that look to use finance to regenerate the environment. An example of this is ExoWorld. ExoWorld, they are a blockchain startup that have created very a wide array of tools. But just to give you an example, they created these alpha bonds. So these alpha bonds are basically financial tools that allow you to channel funds from social development and social impact bonds towards underrepresented communities and underrepresented parties. And let me be more concrete. Imagine you are a farmer in Colombia and you don't have access to the traditional markets. You cannot get financiation, basically. So what they allow is that okay, you are a farmer doing a sustainable agriculture. Okay, then I'm gonna create a decentralized identification for you, DID. And through the blockchain, we're gonna verify that what you are doing is actually sustainable agriculture through an oracle, a third party, and this third party will issue a report, and this report gets visualized by the people with the money to fund these kind of projects, and then they pay the investors of the alpha bonds. And where the alpha bonds money goes, obviously to the agriculture guys that are underrepresented. So this is just another example. And the last one is impacts NFTs. Of course, we have NFTs everywhere. Everyone is here about NFTs. They are also active on impact. So for example, we have the Impact Alliance of NFTs. It's basically an alliance to create NFTs for impact. We have Ocean Bears. They are doing the same to protect the environment. And we have Moss with their Amazon project. This project is particularly crazy. So basically what they're doing is that they are buying the Amazon forest, like parts of the Amazon forest, to create a green wall that will prevent lodging from these big industries, because it's not public land anymore, it's become private, and if it's private, you can protect it. So you can protect it with rangers, you can protect it with drones, it becomes like a capitalism tool to actually fight this problem that is to some extent part of capitalism as well, but to some extent also part of corruption. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
How do you balance the problems with, you turn into conservation, but blockchain has the image of being unsustainable, consuming too much energy. How do you balance that out?
That's an excellent question. So for one thing that we see is that all these projects, none of them are using blockchains that are based on proof of work. So that's a very important thing. And when they do, they integrate the system to compensate for the CO2 that is incurred in the transactions themselves. So that's a way that you can avoid or prevent or compensate for the CO2 impact of these blockchains are based on proof of work. Yeah. Any other question?
It's an amazing concept to have an alternative to the classic donation from big foundations, for example. So I understand that from the technical point of view, from the visibility, I mean, most of these logos you showed us was completely unknown for me before. So my question is, how do they get the necessary visibility, or say how do they get the donations from real people that are willing to donate?
Yeah, thank you. Well, this is community based. You know, this is drinks from the Web3 concept that we actually have to build communities that are engaged and communities that want to do a change. And so what these communities can do is that they can actually put money themselves, but they can also reach out to the right people that have the money directly, or they can also reach to the investment funds that can be interested to put the money. But just to give you a more concrete example, with regenerative finance, what you're actually trying to do as well is to use the incentives of capitalism to actually get basically income or interest rate from these alpha bonds to do social good, and to do social good in such a way that you are combining the legacy wall of these social impact bonds with the Web3 decentralization, verificability, and all these all the goods that we know from the Web3 space. Does that answer your question?
I'm getting the feeling that we just shifting the problem into another technology that feels more like a symptom solving, less going to the core and solving it from there. What I mean by that is now we have new communities, but these new communities having the same issues as the regular normal ones, and that is finding enough people that are willing to engage in these communities.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the problem is that we don't have enough people that want to engage. I would say that we do have the capital to make all these changes. The capital is already there. But the problem that we have is the translation of how we get this capital that is already there, that countries are putting, that NGOs are putting into these countries that need to develop and these conservation areas in the world, how we actually translate that into action that is effective, how we make that effective. And one of the ways to make this effective is creating local projects that can be verified through the blockchain and giving these resources where they're actually needed. So skipping all the bureaucratic part of like going through governmental agencies, corruption, lack of transparency, etc. So I'm not saying that this is gonna completely solve the issue, but it's definitely a direction in the right way.
Yeah, so related to that, my question is, how do you envision the future of blockchain when it comes to communities? Like, does your project work on an organizational level? Like, what are the organizations? Are DAOs, and are these DAOs built by local farmers? Do these local farmers need to have a digital wallet, or how does the finance, how does capital circulate in a way? And, and are these DAOs organized with other DAOs that are bigger DAOs that are organizations not built by locals? How do you envision that future when this project is working?
So when I see the future of social impact and conservation, I really see this network of DAOs that are working on specific problems, but at the same time have some common vision. And I will say that one common vision that we can use are the Sustainable Development Goals. I think this is a good place to start. We might actually need something better in the future, but for now, working on this baseline of DAOs focusing on different SDGs, I think it's an excellent approach. It's an approach that some of the DAOs that already mentioned before are already using. So I think that's a good way to move forward. Yeah.
Thank you. It was very interesting, your presentation. I am representing a community of 5,000 small-scale farmers in Ghana.
Yeah.
And much of what you are saying is very recognizable. So thank you for hearing the problems that we have in rural Africa. As a community, we have tried to work with the old system, and what we have seen is every time Westerners from outside our community are, because they have the money, because they think they know better, start controlling, and we don't want that anymore. So we have developed our own program for what we want to do as a village community, and basically we have a very concrete plan to make a region which is large and potentially 3 times the size of the Netherlands, organic, one plot from one farmer at a time. And we would want to start in our local village, Sakuba, with a demonstration plot. What is now hindering us is we are remote and rural, don't have access to the internet, we are not skilled like people are here. And our major problem is that we need €500,000 seed funding to get started. And with that we can buy machines and make installations that make us self-sufficient. We can make our own fertilizers, we can make our own pesticides organic, and we can give them out for free to the farmers. And we are setting a farmers community, cooperative. What can you do to help us?
Well, I think that for what you have described, this particular agency company, Ixop.world, would be really helpful because they have a lot of experience on. So you have to do something very complex. You have to organize the local community in a meaningful way, such a way they actually provide feedback to what's going on and actually can have a direction of what is going on. But at the same time, you also have to coordinate with the community of people that maybe live abroad and they actually want to help to make the impact. So you have these two communities, and I think it's very important to have a balance on you need to find the problems that the first one gives to you, and the second one might actually have some of the solutions for these problems. So what you need is community coordination to some extent, and that's very difficult to achieve in general. But I believe that with the technologies that Ixop is putting forward, is a good way to go about it. And you have so what they do is create DAOs. They engage with the leader of the tribes, with the leader of the communities, and they give them like the minimum they need to actually engage, and they provide infrastructure as well. So they go there and they install some sort of routers, some sort of connection there. And what we see is that Africa is actually developing a lot of 5G connectivity from the start, kind of. So that's a positive development, but we can talk about later about this because there is a lot of things that you could do with XO. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I had a question and also want to put in something into this discussion. Now, everyone here knows, I think, that climate change is like a ticking bomb.
That what?
Climate change, the ticking bomb, right? The time bomb. It's on our path, and we're headed towards complete devastation as a humanity. Maybe we're not all aware of that now, but we, soon we will be. Now, my issue here with this kind of initiative is that, we have existing institutions like the EU who are really powerful. We've given them the right to make laws, to enforce them, to sanction countries, to sanction individuals. There is already a governance system. If we maybe give them more power, maybe these kind of institutions will achieve more for the goal of changing something better for the climate than if we create so many different sub-governance systems. I'm just wondering, how do you envision that such powerful institutions will coexist with sub-governance systems, and whether maybe, it will not be in the interest of either of them, of the already existing governance systems, and also these sub-governance systems. I mean, I see that what I think is that these will only make each other weaker. So what is your vision with regards to the coexistence of these? And do you not think that maybe it's a dangerous thing to create more sub-governance systems to tackle this kind of sensitive issue?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So, well, what we have seen is that these systems that we have put in place to combat climate change and conservation, they're not effective. And they're not effective, not that they're completely useless, they're just not effective at the speed and at the rate that we need them to be effective.
Can I answer?
Organizations?
Sorry?
You mean EU organizations?
I mean all conservation efforts historically. So this includes the EU, but this includes basically everything. We are not able to cope with the speed of the change of climate change, and this includes biodiversity destruction, includes air pollution, includes many other things. However, technology is actually helping. Not everything is gloom and doom. We're actually seeing a lot of progress. We thought 10 years ago that we will actually reach 3 degrees, 4 degrees more than after the industrialization period. At this rate right now, we're actually decreasing, and we're actually having the technologies to probably reach 2 degrees. It's still dangerous because it's still more than 1.5, but actually things are not as bad as we thought like 5 years ago. So we're actually doing a lot of progress because we have initiatives like this, but also because the key players are realizing that this centralized form of supporting these efforts is not working. It's basically not working, or not working at the speed that you need.
The problem that I have with the digital reality is that the problems are solved in the digital reality, but not in the physical reality. So if you look at our area, you see the NGOs and the governments saying we have improved look, but when you look at the land, you see no improvement but decrease. So there is a big disbalance between the reality that is created on paper and in the physical reality of the SDGs, because nobody wants to support a losing team, so everybody is a winner. Yeah. But the real losers are us, the poor farmers in the rural communities, because it doesn't bring the real change in the physical world. So in the digital world, the story is being told, we've planted 1,000 trees, to give one example. Nobody tells that 950 trees are eaten by the goats and the cows within 1 to 2 months. So those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we need oracles that have incentives in a way that they're aligned with actually is required on the field, and it's not only aligned once, but it's aligned continuously, and it can actually be checked after the fact. So it's not only one check, but it's maybe 5 checks in a year, or maybe 10 checks in a year. You know, so this is the kind of solutions that we need.
Yeah, I just wanted to answer a little bit what you said, and I wrote my thesis on the scaling barriers of circular economy startups here in Europe, and the biggest scaling barrier, like the biggest barrier for them to actually come to fruition, was regulation. So although Europe and the European Union are always talking about, yeah, we want to make a circular economy in Europe in 10 years or whatever, it's actually their own regulations that are like keeping it from happening. So I think it boils down to like why decentralization is better than centralization is because there's less bureaucracy in decentralization. Like people can organize much better in smaller groups rather than trying to organize in these bigger bureaucratic centralized
Yeah, and secondly, what you are saying is true. With us, no village is the same. Every community is different.
Exactly.
Even the soil, on one land we can
Yeah.
grow beans, on the other we cannot. So it's so true what you are saying.
That's why we need a decentralized answer to these decentralized problems.
We must be.
I would like to react to that because you also mentioned that in your presentation carbon credits. I know someone in France who's now busy with this to quantify, how many carbon credits does a company need in order to operate, and she's really busy with that. She's doing a great job. But it's because of EU regulation that she is now kind of headed towards like that kind of solution. Like carbon credits, I know some initiatives where actually these carbon credits were actually generated by these initiatives themselves, which is interesting because the entire carbon credits market has not been defined yet. It's in development. But for initiatives to kind of define the market, whereas actually sometimes, in the world of carbon credits, you need to actually cap the market in order to make them tradable and to kind of like say like, okay, this is how many carbon credits are in the ecosystem, and based on this, we allow certain companies to emit more CO2 or less CO2. For that, you actually need a centralized body. So, and then like to see all these independent decentralized solutions for example, carbon credits, it makes no sense. I think there is a wrong use of like these kind of big terms like blockchain and like decentralized organizations for things that we should maybe have a more central approach to.
So this is a very good point. Although what we actually have is a carbon credit system that is part of basically our centralized world, and this part is regulated, it's actually heavily regulated, but we also have a voluntary carbon system that is actually growing much faster, and that we need some open standards, and that we're actually going to be potentially more useful than the regulated one just because of the rate at the growth that this one can have. So that's one thing I would like to say about that.
There were a lot of things said around here. So first of all, I would say that I agree with the fact that it would be great for a worldwide organization to solve all of these issues, but we can see that it's not happening. I also want to mention the idea that internet was the one that actually gave power to businesses, because before that the governments were the ones that had all the power, right? And without the internet being open source, probably Apple or other very big brands wouldn't have existed. And I think we're now going into Web3, the first technological era where actually businesses can compete with governments in creating stuff. And businesses couldn't, some of them, not all of them, but maybe they represent us better than even governments, right? And in this respect, I would say that what I find interesting, and I was actually going to ask you about it, is again about the DAO organization structure, because NGOs usually, or that's at least my opinion, there was no competition really, because NGOs, like, there's not too much good you can make, right? If you have infinite money to pour into great causes, then just do it. The more the better, right? But what I think about DAOs, if you have an ecosystem big enough and you have sub-DAOs, then you can incentivize them, and then they compete with one another, right? So you have, let's say, 5 sub-DAOs that focus on rhinos, and then they need to be more efficient so that they get more funds from the DAO. So this way, I mean, I don't know if some of you know about Seaspiracy, the documentary, and the inefficiencies in NGOs in some areas that most of us were not even aware of, but they still got a lot of money. And I was wondering what you think about this competition that can be created between sub-DAOs in an environment that didn't have competition because it wasn't commercially, what do you call it? Motivating. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think this is a great solution moving forward. I think that, as I said before, NGOs are going to probably be superseded by DAOs. And we're going to have this network of DAOs, even DAOs multiple DAOs doing the same thing, and they're actually going to compete for the resources that are already there, the capital that is already there to tackle this problem that right now is not being effectively used. So I definitely see a future where DAOs are actually competing to see which one is the most impactful one.
Yeah, just because you talked about collaboration, but I was also curious about the competition, not only the collaboration.
By the way, there is competition.
Yeah.
I worked in NGOs, there's a lot of competition, but because in the end they need to raise money from investors.
Yeah.
So they have tech, they have everything. It's the same game, but the theme is just different. And it's also more ego involved, by the way, than regular companies, because who is doing the most good? So this is from insider, working there for 1 year. I've seen it. What I recommend us, it's really easy to judge what you said from the outside, but my vision is to create a local DAO here and to make this canal cleaner. Like, can we do that? If you can do that, then you can understand what he's saying.
Exactly.
Because I think the problem we're trying to solve, to save a dolphin, we will never see in an ocean we've never been. And this lack of empathy is a big barrier to solve problems. And I totally agree with everything that's being said, but the general principle, you need to define what is the problem. Sometimes it's a distributed problem, sometimes it's a centralized problem. So not everything fits. And if you really want to participate in a game or whatever it is, build a Web3 company or a DAO, or save the dog here, and then you can start thinking about more complex things that you never anticipate. I think the problem with NGOs, they're very complex, slow, taking a lot of resources, and once you have the money, you just need to see where to spend it, which is very different than startups. Like, I don't have money, how can we be resourceful? If we can start thinking locally, and that's, I think, the vision of Foreground, by the way, to connect people locally, also to solve local problems that you can see and feel, then you can have a distributed way to solve local problems. I believe we can scale to a global solution.
And then
that's like a more, I think, accurate way to look at it. What is the right tool with the right problem? Then Web3 is a solution for everything, or government, or NGO. I'm not saying that's what you said, but I'm saying this is...
But then you said that competition is when you get the funds, right? And it feels like every time you get the funds, you're again at point zero, right? You got the funds for your project, you convinced the people you were convincing, you did it poorly, you did it in a good way, it doesn't really matter, because there's not that competition that you have in actual businesses, right? It's not Apple versus Samsung, right? Because it's not based on efficiency, it's more based on ego, as you said, right? And more than that, right? So maybe in an ecosystem where someone or like the community supervises this stuff, they can actually also reward efficiency, right? Not just speeches or reputation that was created. I don't know, some of the biggest NGOs, don't know a lot about it, but some of the biggest NGOs, as far as I know, they're not even the most, they don't do the most efficient work. Like small, right?
They serve
And it's
themselves.
just,
It's a multi-billion business.
yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
these people going there and just showing off.
Last
because
point
they-
before I give you time to speak, I think it's like you have a hammer, everything is nailed, right? This is the same principle, and the NGO game is not as we see it. Most of it's about lobbyism.
Yeah.
So they work with big corporates or government, and they have their own agenda that you don't see. I'm not going to mention some names, like big names that we know. It's a lobbyism company. They don't care really about you. They have a big vision to change the world. That anything if they change politician agenda, they will change the world. So it's not even about a problem. And I'm not talking about data. I'm coming from data engineering and build data products. When you look at not everyone, again, some projects are really scientific, like really saving a river.
Well, I don't like mentioning names, so I went to Oxford Novib and we had a project on gender equality, gender equity, and I was told, well, that was the theme for last year. And I immediately said, so it's solved now. It's ridiculous. And I can mention the name because I'm not welcome anymore anyway, so I don't mind. But that's how it goes.
Yeah, there are multiple doing this. Greenpeace also have huge problems with this.
You know how I became a community representative is because the community invited me, because the international world and the international aid is not serving them. It's not serving us. It's serving other purposes except the communities that it should be serving.
Yeah. Warlord and corrupt politicians, basically.
For you,
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
come from.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm really curious what's
I just have a comment to what you said before. So I spent 8 years in academia, and the whole academic system works this way, that basically you get public funding based on your previous public funding plus your results, meaning publications. But how to judge the quality of this publication, how to judge the quality of your contribution. So we have, at this moment, that's also why I stepped out of academia, because I spent 8 years in a system where like the amount of knowledge we have about the human brain, which is what I was doing, is dropping. Because people build hypotheses based on p-hacked publications from the past, so there is even more bullshit in the scientific literature, so there is even more soup. You know, you don't know what is true, what is not true, so you build hypotheses based on these untrue results from the past, like not scrupulous or like consciously p-hacked just to publish something. So in fact, in the last decade, our amount of knowledge we have about human brain actually went down instead of going up for this reason. And so this comes with its own problem. So when you want to evaluate and compare and in a form of a competition, because this is what it actually is. So academic system is a competition. There is always not enough seats for everyone, so if you want to proceed in the hierarchy, then you have to outcompete someone. So you have to outcompete other people in terms of the publications and their quality, perceived quality. And that's basically perceived, yes. And also relevance, right? So like impact, that is also perceived impact. So, and it comes with its own problem. So, I just wanted to say that we already know what happens when you assign funds on the basis of open competition, because it's happening in academia for ages now, and it's not. Doesn't lead to good results. So I don't have, but in academia nowadays there is like an open debate how to make the scientific process better, because it's commonly known problem. Like it's not a secret. Like academics openly talk about it, but there is no viable solution. Like no one came up with a solution yet, because it's just that's a human nature. If you want to, if you need to stay and you need to outcompete others, you will just do anything, you know. And if you're the breadwinner for your family, you will just do whatever it takes to stay, right? So it's just like that's human nature. So it's really hard to come up with a solution to this. That's just a one comment.
Yeah, that's.
I felt this pain for 8 years on my own skin, so I just wanted to share. But if you have any solution, that the academia is waiting for you, because we have that problem.
Yeah, well, now we have this open research movement, right? And then we have it also decentralized science movement. And one of the problems that it's been identified is that we have these publishing houses, basically, that they publish their research. And apparently the incentive of these publishing houses is one of the contributing, it's not the whole thing, but it's one of the contributing factors of why we care more about quantity rather than quality in academia. So that's something that needs to be disrupted if we want to start fixing the problem. I don't know what is the full way to solve the problem, but one of the problems is the publishing houses and the incentives, the economic incentives that they have. So yeah.
It's also, I think, social media. You said you had your own channel or something, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't really matter. It's just about, the more content you post, the more followers you have. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's quality, it's just more, right? Yeah. Quality takes more time, and then you compete with those who just put less effort into it, and then eventually they win, I guess, over you, right?
Yeah, consistency is
Nobody. I think the incentive model is important, because also we see, like, what is the incentive model, or academia, or NGOs? And the incentive model is to keep people on the platform. It doesn't matter what you put there, crap, conspiracy, and that's the algorithm. So it's a finite game. You know who's going to win. It's not about quality. It's about how you can hack people's brain. Yeah. So this is the game. I think what Web3 is offering, or crypto, it's not about the technology. It's a new way to look at the society. How do we collaborate? How do we incentivize each other? Maybe it can change over time.
Yeah, we can rework the incentives.
Yeah, and I think this is, I'm not bounded to Web3 or crypto or Bitcoin. I'm bounded to how human collaboration can find a more efficient, healthy, better way to solve really complex problems. Because government, like you saw it in COVID, they don't know how to handle complex problems. They don't understand it. Okay, a lockdown. No, not a lockdown, another lockdown. Because it's like binary, but the world is a living thing. You poke somewhere and something happened, and you don't see the relation, right? It's not a linear process. And I think society and globalism create this kind of creature that you cannot anticipate anything for the next moment, because everything is connected. So we need, I think, new distribution channels, or a new way to connect, collaborate locally, smaller groups. You move faster, you can experiment faster. You can see the Web3 as a space to experiment. And not just a rigid economy or whatever, I don't know. Of course, you can look at it from different...
For me, there is a tension between competition and regenerative. What we are trying to do in creating Ghana, and I have history in change management, and have been inspired by management gurus, is what we call local systems of influence. And local system of influence with us can be each village. Sakaba 5,000 people, Dalong 10,000 people, and it is about making every local community, in our case village community, resilient, healthy and self-sufficient. And instead of competition, there is collaboration and cross-pollination. That's a big difference between a centralized model where competition is there and a decentralized model where cross-pollination only happens when we collaborate with each other. We strengthen each other. We don't need to fight each other. We must help each other. That is the principle that we try to apply.
Yeah, and I also one thing that I think is very important, that last thing, is that when we compete, we are collaborating to some extent, because we are playing with the same rules of the game. Sometimes we skip the rules of the game, sometimes we change that, but for the most part, when we compete, we're collaborating to some extent. And the same when we collaborate, we can compete to see who is providing more value in the collaboration. So the two things are not excluding themselves. They just like one thing has a little bit of the other thing, and one thing has a bit of the other thing. So yeah, that's something I want to push on.
I continue to disagree. Competition is about win-lose. And in nature there is abundance. Even in economy there is abundance. But one of the principles that I used to use is abundance is there, the divide is unfair.
But you cannot compete, right, if you don't play with
But if
the
you look at the local economy, if you look at how we compete with each other, money and stuff is flowing in one direction and concentrating with few. Take for instance, what's his name, Bezos. If you, with the money that one person has, you can feed everybody on the planet a decent meal for a year. That's ridiculous. And that is what competition does. It is about collaboration. It is about accepting that there is abundance and accepting that maybe we are not the same and that we have differences and that we can disagree. But the point is, how do we make the disagreement better for both of us? And in competition, it's a fight, and it's you are wrong and I am right. And if I am right, you can never be right. I am better than you. And in collaboration, is it like you think this, I think that. That's interesting. Let's sit and talk and see together if we can explore and learn from each other. Competition is a killer for learner, and it's a killer for nature. And yeah.
If you're not playing the same rule of the game, you're not even competing. You're out of the game. And if you're out of the game, there's no even that level of
But the game sucks. It kills nature, it kills people, it kills life.
Yeah.
So we must change the rules of the game. Isn't that why we are here?
Yeah, definitely.
So
And that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do with Web3.
Together.
Change the rules of the game. Exactly.
Yeah. It sucks, it doesn't serve us, it doesn't serve our children, it doesn't serve nature at all. So let's change it together with each other.
Yes, let's change it.
Let's change it. Let's change it.
Super interesting conversation, and thank you, Rodrigo. Yeah, we're gonna make more days like this, and I think also those kind of conversation. It's all about we agree. It's about like hearing different perspectives and learning. So yeah, thank you for coming. We're gonna we need to clean up so we can stay a bit. We have until, let's say, another 40 minutes so you can hang around, but we're gonna be busy with knitting this place. So thank you everyone, and enjoy your day, the rest of the day.